This. All right, welcome to the Stephen Lee Thomas Show. I'm your host, Stephen Lee Thomas, and today our guest has over 30 years of experience as a real estate investor. She's the CEO of Golden Canyon Properties. She's flipped over 52 houses, two of which were featured on HGTV. She's the founder of Your Wealth Network Meetup Group and the Women's Wealth Network. She's also been featured on Fox, CBS, NBC, and Yahoo Finance. My guest today is Ginger Faith. Ginger, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Pleasure to be with you.
And so we were talking a little bit before the recording. You're located up, we'll call it the Bay Area if we were in California. So located on the West Coast in the San Francisco area, correct?
Yes, I'm in Livermore. I'm actually in wine country. I'm outside San Francisco about 40 minutes. And what Livermore people like to say is Napa makes auto parts, Livermore makes wine.
Nice. I love that. So, we'll get into the real estate investing here in a little bit, but I love to go up in that area. Sonoma, Russian River Valley, is one of my favorite appellations. And so we end up there as much as we can. But I think it's great that you're able to be in real estate and live in a beautiful place in the country. So I'd like to learn more about, we can get into that a little bit, how you're able to, bring all that together where you're doing the real estate investing, living in such a beautiful place. So, um, Ginger, tell us a little bit, how did you even get started in real estate? You've been doing it for 30 years. Like, what got you into it in the first place?
Well, I like to read books, and one of the books I read very early on was Nothing Down by Robert Allen, and he proposed an idea I thought was very intriguing that if you buy one single family home per year for 10 years, then you basically have your retirement. You rent it out, and over time, you're all set. So I was in my early 20s, and I thought that's a great idea. And then I thought, well, why don't I buy a six family? Because then I can accelerate. And so very simple logic, but it worked. I ended up buying a old, it looked dilapidated, but it was actually had good bones, an 1880 something Victorian house with six units. And as soon as I threw a coat of paint on the outside, I had a line of people waiting to give me applications to get in.
Well, that's
And
that's awesome. So was that was that commercial property technically when you get into that 6 unit mark?
technically, yeah,
Okay.
anything over four, and I recently heard five, but I don't know. But at the time, definitely was good commercial. Yeah.
Okay. So was that so you had done a number of single family homes and then you were able to,
No, I jumped right in. I first just bought a six family, just right off the bat. I just thought, oh, why don't I get a jump on this idea?
and that was it. You were off to the races and then the rest is history, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So have you been able to get into larger commercial deals or is that like a nice sweet spot for you?
That's a great question. For a long time, I just simply focused on the residential market. In the right around 2010, I started getting involved with commercial, but I never took it seriously from the standpoint of I was so busy with I had such a large book of business working the residential market with the crash. Everything was so tumultuous, and I was very busy. And that's when I started flipping most of the houses that I purchased and flipped right around like 2009 to 2014 that was when I really focused on that. So I was really too busy to get involved in, but I did dabble in medical buildings at the time.
Hmm.
And then it wasn't until just a few years ago that I joined the Scott Shield Commercial Academy. I had heard about it. I had visited him in 2010, but again, I was too busy with residential. But a friend of mine got involved with it, and she really took the whole course seriously. And in 3 years, having very little real estate experience, she flipped a 56 unit apartment house, garden style, walked out with multiple seven figures in 3 years
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
while calling on me for advice the whole dang time.
So
So,
I would say, so is that what's led you to, I mean, you very focused on helping women in this real estate space. It is a heavily dominated by men in the space. And I know that you like to help women, figure this thing out. It could probably be very intimidating. So is that really kind of the genesis of how that started for you?
I've always been interested in helping women to invest in real estate. And what happened is I had REI meetups. And whenever I would talk and tell my story about getting involved with real estate early on as an investor, women would line up to want to talk with me. And so that's how that happened. What happened with my friend was just coincidental. And
Yeah.
I ended up joining the Scott Shield Commercial Academy. And I recently made a purchase in Sacramento with a couple of friends of mine, and we joint ventured in a really nice 30,000 square foot building right in downtown, beautiful building overlooking the Capitol. So that's my first recent commercial building that I purchased.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're okay with it, I'd like to hang out in this space of you helping the women. And so the Women's Wealth Network, can you tell me what that is and who that's for?
Yeah, basically, I'm very committed in helping women to compress time. What did happen as a genesis with my friend was piquing my interest in this concept of compressing time, because basically she did in 3 years would have taken people 20 years. And then when I joined the commercial academy, I realized that more women are doing the same thing, mostly men. It only in the commercial space, only 3% of women are invested. And of the 3%, 1.5% have inherited their property. So it's a very, very small percentage. With women in residential, most of the time the women are realtors, and
Hmm.
that's awesome. But what I like to encourage is like, look, you're working really hard as a realtor. What are you doing for your retirement? Because we don't have a 401k as you know, as you're if
Yeah.
you're self-employed. So it was a genesis mostly of wanting the when I started the REI meetings and women were lining up to ask me questions about real estate investing. Then I realized that it was important to focus on that and to help women to decipher the labyrinth of what's out there, and just start with baby steps. And there's a lot of ways you can get involved with um, investing without buying something huge. Just starting small can be really powerful. Even the six family was fairly small in comparison to some of the things that my friends are doing now. But it could be something as simple as starting an Airbnb or being a co-host for an Airbnb, offering your services as a property manager co-host. You can do that with no money at all out of your pocket, and it'll get you acquainted with the ideas of how to get involved in real estate. So there's a lot of ways that women can get involved. It just depending on their time and their schedule, just to make a little extra money that they're not even realizing that they can. There's a woman in the LA area who's making $50,000 a month as a co-host for Airbnb hosts in the Hollywood Hills and big fancy places. But if you think about that, you don't necessarily need that. You could start small and make an extra $1,000 a month being a co-host. Then you get involved, and then when you make a little bit of money, then you start investing. Then you learn the basics of investing. So stair stepping your way to wealth is important, or compressing time. If you're going to be compressing time, you need to be thinking bigger, and you need to get really out of your comfort zone. But it can be
Mm-hmm.
done.
Hmm.
Can be done.
Yeah, the getting out of your comfort zone. So I'd like to hang out in that space for a little bit, because there's, I think we all know real estate is sexy, but it's not necessarily easy to get it all figured out. And I think there's a lot of limiting beliefs, and I think it's how do you overcome those limiting beliefs and getting out of your comfort zone? Do you mind sharing with us how you work with people, or maybe some of the challenges you've had in getting out of your comfort zone and breaking through those limiting beliefs?
I still am getting out of my comfort zone. I'm still getting out of every day. Every day I'm getting out of it. I'm like, oh man, here it is again. I think our minds are wired to keep us safe. Our minds are wired to keep us safe, right? So that we don't die. So, so it's very easy. It's not like it's something wrong with us if we're
Uh-huh.
wanting to be comfortable, we're wanting to be safe. But there's also this other reality in us. we all have a divine spark. If we're not dumbing it down by, alcohol or, watching TV all day, we have a divine spark that wants us to grow. Everything alive wants to grow, 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 right? And so we've got this push pull inside of all the time that we need to be aware of. And that inside wants us to grow and wants us to be safe, wants us to grow, wants us to be safe. Right. So
This evil
being aware
paradox, right? It's
being
yes, you're right.
aware of it, yes,
Mhm.
yes. Shinobu Suzuki said, if it's not a paradox, it's not true. And I think you'll realize that that's accurate in
Mhm.
many, many ways. So we are just accepting that our brain is hardwired to keep us safe, but our spirit is hardwired to help us grow. We're always going to have this challenge, and we just can't get away from it. So I think the best thing is to be aware of it, to chart our course, decide what we want, and then every day revisit what do we want and how are we going to get it, revisit it. And doing positive affirmations has helped me to get out of my comfort zone. That's something I do daily.
Mhm.
I've evolved recently, consciously. I've always done this, but consciously I've evolved to actually having saying my affirmations out loud, because your consciousness, I think, elevates when you're
Mhm.
saying, or if you're affirming or if you're praying positively out loud. I think it has some vibrational value. It certainly sets my day off better when I do that, and I'm more intentional, and I don't take the challenges, they're not as difficult when I do that. When I don't for a couple of days, the challenges become very burdensome. So that's something that I found very powerful as a tool to help us to help me to grow.
I saw something about that the other day where you literally take your affirmation, your desired state, and you will physically write it down. You'll say it out loud and you visualize it, and you're activating different parts of your brain. And you're basically, I don't know if tricking your brain is the right way, but once you start to actually visualize it and see it and hear it out loud, your brain starts thinking it's true, and it helps remove a lot of those obstacles. So I have not done all of those. I'm a big believer on meditation, self-reflection. I love writing down goals. I have not said this stuff out loud, but hearing you say that, I'm gonna take that advice and I'm gonna start applying that. So I appreciate you sharing it. Something you said about limiting beliefs, this is something I struggled with for a long time. And somebody asked me the other day, very similar question. My answer was almost the exact same as yours was, I don't have it figured out. I deal with it every single day. But I think it's what you said was you just acknowledge it. Like you have to realize that it's there. It's always there. It never goes away. What I've learned is that when I have that uncomfortable feeling, that's when I know I need to hang out in that space. That's kind of like my compass of, am I going the right direction or not? Am I pushing myself enough or not? And because once I can, ooh, I'm a little uncomfortable. Well, hold on a second. Every time I've been uncomfortable in the past, if I push through it, that's how I got my growth. So that's what I heard you say. So it's just kind of that acknowledgement of it's there, like it's real. You don't like learn to not have that feeling anymore. So um awesome. So I want to jump back really quick because you also mentioned shortening that time frame. Um Before the show, you had mentioned helping people compress the time frame like in a 3 to 5 year time frame. And I'm gonna hang out in that limiting beliefs section. That's kind of crazy. Like that's not what most people think. You mentioned, yeah, it's a long haul, 20 years, but what does that look like? How can you work with somebody like, imagine someone, they're like in this 40-year-old, 60-year-old range, and they're feeling like, man, I am so behind right now. What do I do? Like, do I throw in the towel? And I think you got some strategies to help people out.
First of all, never throw in the towel, because if you're alive, you have something to work with. So never throw in the towel. Pick yourself up. I would say that, there's so many we are unbelievably blessed with knowledge and wisdom from truly great people now. When I was first starting out, I had books and sometimes there were tapes, but they were expensive and they were prohibitive for a lot of people.
Hmm.
Now you can turn on YouTube and you can get the wisdom of the world. Some of the most successful people on the planet are opening their doors and saying, here's how to be successful. So there's no reason for anybody who's committed to not be successful. But we have to acknowledge reality that not everything is fair, not everything is equal. Some people have to work harder for many, many reasons. And that's just the way it is. But that's okay. Just once you accept it, like, okay, here's my strengths, here are my assets, here are my limitations. I think it's actually not a bad thing to recognize your limitations. Jim Rohn likes to say, he used to say, just say, hey, I'm broke. Like, okay, you're broke. So if you're affirming I'm rich and you're like broke, you're like, no, I'm broke. Okay. So, okay, I'm broke, but I have, what are my assets, right? So work with your assets, whatever they are.
Hmm.
And so I would say that's, look at reality, but don't make reality your future. Make your reality your now, but speak to your calling, not to your condition. So I would say, really, I believe that, especially now, that there is a growing sense of empowerment with people. People are understanding their identity more.
Hmm.
Their spirituality is growing. There's so much growth on our planet right now, and appreciate that and run with it. And even if you're starting off with very little, you're starting off with something. And there are so many tools available. So, first thing I like to tell people is this: acknowledge your genius. What is your natural genius? Some people are natural people persons. Some people are natural builders. Some people are natural systems genius. What is your natural genius? Figure this out and then run with that. And then get other people to help you to support your vision and your goal. And so number two, think bigger. And I always wondered what that meant. If you have to think bigger. Back in the day, like 25 years ago when Donald Trump was cool, he would say, if you have to think bigger. And then I was like, what does that mean? And what does that mean? But now I'm with people who think so much bigger than me. And now I'm understanding what that means. And you can compress time by thinking bigger. So if my friend had flipped one house, she would have made maybe 100, 200,000. Depending on the location, I've made $1 million with my team on one house, depending on the location. But normally, you get a little bit. But if you buy a 56 unit apartment complex or a 50 unit or something larger, you're going to, as long as you pay attention, you get great guidance and you work really diligently and quickly, because there's a time frame you don't want to be dragging on with that. You can compress time. And by thinking of like a bigger size, bigger scale, working at your own natural genius. So my friend is a good systems thinker, um, but not a builder. So she
Hmm.
had to get builders. She had to get, contractors to go and fix up the places, but then she had to be on top of it, on top of it, on top of it. So I think that's the, fundamentally how to compress time. Focus on your natural genius, focus on aspects of real estate that are available to you in your market, or go to the market that, some people, I do live in a beautiful place in California, and some people say, live where you want, invest where it makes sense.
Right,
So I have
right.
many friends who invest out of state because the numbers work better. And so go there for a time and then come back. Or, so these are some of the key fundamentals in compressing time.
I'm making some notes here. You mentioned a number of things here, but I'm gonna try to pull some things out of that. Um, when you're first getting started, we're going to hang out in this limiting beliefs space, but when you first get started, um, it's easy to get stuck in analysis paralysis, and you're out doing all this research, right? We have more information than we've ever had, and you can get it so quickly now. I joke around and I say, to my wife or my team, like, there's so much information out there. The biggest problem is like getting it in my brain fast enough. Like, we're in this crazy information world. Um, but something that happens, and I heard you allude to this, is, um, would you say don't do it alone? Like, there's other people who have done it before. Success leaves clues. So one is don't do it alone. Is that fair?
It's not even possible to do real estate alone. It's not even
Okay.
possible.
So then the other thing you mentioned was with the right guidance. So don't do it alone. You can find networks a network to join, but then also you can really compress time by getting guidance. So are you a believer in mentors and having like a mentorship and having people that know how to do this, that just give you the shortcuts and compress your time?
I don't think you'll find anybody who's really successful that I know of who doesn't have a coach, guide, therapist, something. So, you can't
Maybe
think of
all of them,
anything when you're
right?
in the
Yes.
game. Yeah, you
Yes.
can't think of anything when you're right in the game. You can't think about everything. You can't see everything. You can't see your blind spots. Look at the coaches in the NFL. I mean, come on, they don't could they live without their coaches? No. As good as they are, they could not live without their coaches, right? So it's pretty imperative that you get some guidance. And yeah, I have several coaches. And
And
I've always
then
have. I always have.
yeah, and then the other thing I was was hearing you say was, it's also about the people who you surround yourself with.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? So, right, we mentioned don't do it alone. You get a mentor, but then also you might need to, if you look around, are you in the right room? So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, that's a challenging one, right? It's a challenging one. So I right now have a mix of people probably I have people who are my spiritual friends. I have all high quality friends, 100%. But I have some people who are like high quality spiritual friends and high
Mhm.
quality money friends and like so but I don't have a lot of people who are strive to do everything. They have their own gifts and orientation. So but it is really really important. What it is do you want to do? And there are groups that will support you, but it has to happen. It's not going to happen if you don't. And the other thing is if you decide to get a partner, the partner will hold you back if they're not on the same page. And so just recognize that. I've got friends who are very, very ambitious and their partners aren't, and they have to negotiate that. And if you're single, really get in touch with whether or not that's important to you. Because your partner, the person you're talking to every day, are they building you up? Are
Mhm.
they encouraging you to, get better, get out of your comfort zone? Or are they saying, hey, just why don't you let's sit down and watch TV tonight? Like what are
Right?
they
Yep.
doing, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So, and is that okay? Is that okay? Maybe it's okay, but maybe it's not. So, yeah,
But
it's
you
so
got yeah,
critical.
but you gotta have that conversation. So
Uh,
so the takeaways from there are don't do it alone. Seek guidance from mentors. If I have to count the coaches I've had, like four or five, and I still am getting coaching. It's something, to your point, I don't know that I'll ever not have some type of coach. And you grow to a point and then maybe you realize you need something else. So I love that. It's something that once I went down that path and I saw the value and the focus that I got, it was a game changer for me. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Um, Question for you. This was something that, I was reading the bio and how you help people out and your emphasis. So we mentioned this early on. It's this industry male dominated. We know that. I can attest that. I go to these networking events and I am always surprised at how few women there are and even fewer couples that are involved in this. And I'll tell you, like, I've invited my wife multiple times to go with me to these networking events and be involved in real estate and apartment investing specifically. And she doesn't really seem all that interested. And I know, yeah, everybody's got their own approach to it, but have you worked with people or couples? I mean, is that something that you see is more common, or do you think that ties back into just kind of mindset and, well, I guess I should leave it open. Like, what are your thoughts and strategies? Because if I could get my wife to show up and be there, right? I mean, she's very supportive of what I do, but for example, there's probably a lot of men listening to this. And they might be thinking the same thing, like, you know what? I would love it if my wife or my partner would be more involved? Like, how can I get her to like see what I'm seeing here?
I don't know that you can.
Okay,
I don't
fair
know that you
enough.
can change another person. I know really great examples of women who marshaled up when the men went forward. I would say just invite, make it attractive to them, right? Make it attractive. That's the only thing, right? If you were to say, if you're going to sell something, it's got to be attractive. If the woman says, "Oh, that's boring. I'd rather do this or that," right?
Hmm.
So I'd say if I don't think you can necessarily change someone, but what is it? What are their hot buttons? If you're going to do anything, if you're going to even try,
Hmm.
what are the hot buttons? Would retirement and travel be a hot button? For the woman, for it was like, hey honey, if we do this we can have this passive income, and then we can go to the Bahamas or the Tahiti like you always wanted, because the tenants will pay for it. Something like that, right? He's like, wouldn't that be cool? Or you could quit your job that you hate,
Yeah.
or the kids could get home, you could stay home and be and homeschool, whatever. Find out what the hot buttons. Obviously, you know your wife better than anybody. And what are her hot buttons? Find out what's important to her. I think a really great question, I learned, and I use it over and over again whenever the opportunity is appropriate, is asking the question, what's important to you about X?
Hmm.
And then once you get an answer, ask it again and again and again, like 4 or 5 times, usually by the fifth time when you say what's important to you about. So, for example, what's important to you about, I don't know, being independently wealthy. And then the person says, well, to have options. Well, what's important to you about options? Well, I want to be able to travel. What's important to you about traveling? And then you just dig, and then pretty soon you'll get a hot button.
Hmm.
You'll
Hmm.
get into the red zone of what really is motivating person. It's on layer under layer under layer under layer. It's a very powerful thing that anybody can use, very simple. So I would say, start paying attention to what the woman's hot buttons are, and then asking questions around it so you can get where the red zone is. Once you maybe it could be, a challenged child who's not getting the schooling that they need. I have a friend extremely successful, has a child who has a dyslexia, and they're very passionate. They moved and they found the best school because they could, because they were wealthy. They earned it every nickel, but they're wealthy. And then they moved to the place, one of the best schools in the country for dyslexia. They moved right there, and now the child is just doing phenomenal. So that could be like a hot
Hmm.
button. So if we do this, and then this, and then so, not expecting to change someone, but luring them, over time,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
right? Just and disconnecting from the results, because people can feel if you're trying to manipulate in a negative way. But if you're trying to entice somebody, why not? They say, pain pushes till the vision pulls. So the red button is the pain, usually. So find out what the pain point is, and then remedy it with the promise of something better. I would say if you're going to try,
Uh-huh.
that would be my recommendation.
I think you should just give relationship advice in general. I mean, just that's just great communication, right? That's really where it is right there. This has been great. So let's move on to next steps. So someone who's getting started on this journey, where do you recommend? Like what is the first step somebody should take?
I would say take an assessment of what their assets are. What are their assets? What's their natural propensity, genius, and assets? So, how much time do you have? How much money do you have? How many resources do you have? Take an assessment. That's number one. Get it, you have to know where you are. One of my mentors used to say, where you is where you is, and that's okay. But where you're going is up to you, right? So start out where you is,
Hmm. Hmm.
and acknowledge it and be okay with it. This is where and this is my age. This is what, and then once you know where you're at, decide what it is that you want really. But here's the thing, I've wrote about this in my new book that's going to be published, is in the beginning, when I was involved in real estate in the 90s, I would go to all these seminars, and the men would talk about, oh, you can have a yacht and you can do this and that. And nothing appealed to me, nothing resonated with me as being valuable. Like to do all this work to get a yacht, that wasn't something that spoke to me, but speaks to a lot of men. Like they're, I want to be this big to be the big, the king of the hill. But find out what it is you really, really want, not what you are told that you should want based on flex culture. If you need the high end clothing and the shirts, why? What's underneath all of that? Is it fear? Is it a fear of is it a feeling of inadequacy? What's your real motivation? Afraid of being poor because you grew up, very poor. What's your real motivation? It's not bad.
Mhm,
It's all
mhm,
good. You just take it into the mix, but find out what your real motivation is and what would actually motivate you, right? What is it how could you design your life? My book is about using real estate to fund your dream life. And I really think that's a neat idea because I'm a lifestyle builder. I've always been a lifestyle builder. I've never been an empire builder. And I was being taught in the 90s by all these empire builders. They want like 29 shopping centers. I'm like, what? That is like not for me.
uh-huh.
Like, I want enough real estate bringing me in passive income so I can do what I want when I want to do it and enjoy that. So find out what it is that you want to do and why. So take inventory, find out what you really want. Maybe ask yourself, what's important to me about, and then get your hot button. Then catalyze that motivation to connecting your resources with what's available. And I would say start looking for groups right away
Mhm.
and, watching podcasts like this or Bigger Pockets or, start looking and finding the right match for what you intend to create.
And read your new book, right?
And read my new book
And read
once
your
it
new
gets
book.
out. Yeah.
What? Yeah, tell us about that. That's exciting news. So, title of your book?
21 ways to stop chasing hustle and live the life you want. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but
Okay.
it's
All
21 ways
right.
to stop chasing hustle. And the subtitle is how to use real estate to fund your dream life.
Do you have a release date for it yet?
July 5th, if I'm 15th. But you know what? I'm not going to be able to pull that off. I'm
Okay.
finishing up a flip. I've got so much going on right now.
But
Probably
soon.
by the end of the
Soon.
summer. But
Okay.
I literally, I'm going to spend an hour a day. It's written. The script is written. Thank you, God. I just I have to do all of the other steps to get it out there on Amazon. So
Okay. So we can find it on Amazon.
it will be on Amazon.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's awesome. So we'll look for that on Amazon. It should be out by the end of summer. 21 ways to stop chasing hustle.
Hustle.
And it might change a little bit, but that's okay. That's
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Awesome. Okay. Well, so for all of you listening, go get this book. It's going to be a bestseller. We got to help make it a bestseller. Okay. So go get this book. I'm going to do it. You need to do it too. All right. Closing thoughts. Um, Single biggest piece of advice you could give anybody over your 30 years of experience. What is that?
Listen to your intuition. Listen and follow your intuition and honor it. Yeah, I would say that's number one. I did an exercise back in the 90s. I took a master class on neurolinguistic programming, NLP, which is what
Hmm.
Tony Robbins, launched his career on. And I was there for a month. And one of the great classes that we did was we did all these amazing classes, but one of them was think of a time where you really messed up. You really made a bad decision. And then so you think of that. And then think of another time where you made a great decision and it was a really amazing choice. And you think of that. And then the common denominator, everybody in the room, there were like 40 people in the room. The common denominator was when you made the big decision that was wrong, you listened to somebody else. Like invariably, people listen to someone else telling them what they should be doing in their life. And then the other thing on the opposite side, person who succeeded in a choice that ended up catapulting their life forward was someone who listened to their intuition and acted on it. And so that would be my one piece of advice.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm thinking about that as we're talking. I'm like, you know what? I think universally that's probably true. Um, the other thing that happens when you do that is you're kind of like following your own path. Like you made the decision and you're comfortable with that. So, Ginger, great advice. I really, really, really enjoyed the time chatting with you today. I learned a lot. How can someone get a hold of you and potentially work with you in the future if they wanted to do that?
I would say the easiest way is on Facebook right now. I'm on most social media. The podcasts are released on my YouTube channel weekly that I do. But the easiest way would be to message me on to Facebook.
What's your Facebook handle?
It's Ginger Crystal Faith.
Easy.
Ginger Crystal Faith. Yeah, my realtor one was it wasn't shut down, but I can no longer access it as after like after as of about a year ago. So it's not shut down, it's out there, but I can't access it. It looks like my last post was a year ago because it was. So
I've had that same problem too, so unfortunate. But we'll make
yeah.
sure we get a link in the show notes so that people can connect with you. All right. Well, Ginger, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'm your host, Stephen Lee Thomas, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks, David.
You got it. And we will